Hello, and welcome back to another official CertComp series. We're starting a new series here with the Linux Plus, the CompTIA Linux Plus exam. Some of you might be wondering, why are we talking about Linux in 2023? Well, Linux is a popular certification. Linux is an immensely popular operating system. It's all over the internet. It's all over the web. It powers something like 95% of the internet. We're going to talk about why it's important, why you should take this class, and why you're in the right place. If you're here to learn Linux, this is what it's all about. This is our introduction. We're going to talk about the introduction to the course, the exam. Who is this course for? What kind of skills are you going to learn? We're going to talk about the tools needed for the course. We'll talk about different topics that are in the course, follow with some important tips, look at the Linux install base, and off we go. So the exam details, this is straight off the CompTIA website. XK004005 4004 was launched in April of 2019 and retired in January of 2023. XKO005, the newest version of Linux Plus exam, was launched in June of 2022. Number of questions, 90 questions on the exam, maximum of 90. The types of questions you will get will be a mixture of multiple choice and multiple response, fill in the blank, and also performance-based questions. You get 90 minutes for the exam. Passing score is 720 on a scale of 900. So similar to other CompTIA exams, it is recommended experience that you have at least the A+, Network Plus, and 12 months of Linux admin experience. Although you don't have to have 12 months of Linux admin experience, because we're going to give you all that and more inside of this one course. Let's talk about the introduction to the certification. So the CompTIA Linux Plus exam has become a benchmark for computers in the computing industry as a method of demonstrating skills with the Linux operating system. Obtaining CompTIA Linux Plus certification means that you're comfortable working in a Linux environment and have the skills necessary to install and maintain Linux systems. Linux has become one of the most fastest growing operating systems to use in server environments. Most companies utilize some kind of Linux system within their infrastructure. And Linux is one of the major players in the cloud and also the rest of the computing world. Companies like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Facebook, Google all use some kind of Linux server. So the more you know about Linux, the more marketable you're going to become in today's computing. So if you want to become a IT guru, IT ninja, Linux is the way you want to go at a minimum. Every student that I talk to, I tell them Linux, 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 Linux. I can't say it enough. Linux must be on your radar. You can't just say anymore that, well, I don't work with Linux systems, so I don't need Linux. Well, so I hate to break it to you, but Windows actually runs Linux. If you go into the Microsoft Store, we're going to open Microsoft Store up real quick, and we're going to type in Linux. And we're going to show you how prevalent it is. Microsoft said at one point that Linux would die a slow death. Well, fast forward to present day, we have the Windows subsystem for Linux. You can run literally Linux, Ubuntu, you can run Kali Linux, you can run Debian, you can run SUSE Linux, all kinds of different things you can run on Windows just a click away. Windows subsystem for Linux is a popular way of running Linux if you don't want to run virtual machines. But again, you can see here just tons and tons and tons of options. So Linux is used by streaming services. It is in high demand, without a doubt. High demand. So companies are looking for Linux, especially if you're going to be a pen tester, you're going to want Kali Linux. If you're going to be a server person, you might want SUSE Linux, you might want Ubuntu Linux. So Linux has the skills, this course will teach you the skills that many companies are looking for. Linux has changed quite a lot since inception. So in 1991, when Linus Torvalds created Linux, I doubt he would have thought that we'd become it's so ubiquitous as it is. He just wanted to create an operating system. So CompTIA in the past has partnered with the Linux Professional Institute. Linux Professional Institute is another organization that sets some of the standards for Linux. You can, if you want to advance your certifications, you can go for. The good thing about this class is that after this will prepare you for LPI level 1, LPI level 1 and level 2. So you could maybe go for a another cert after this. It's vendor neutral. This course will also prepare you for many of the concepts that you will find in the cloud. There are so many different distributions to choose from. So which flavor of Linux do you want to use? It's really up to you. There's so many flavors of Linux to choose from. There's too much. We could be here for a whole entire month just talking about different versions of Linux. So Linux is in high demand, whether you want to talk about Ubuntu. And we're going to have a separate video in the class about how to set up your virtual environment, how you can set up your Linux so you can be effective and study throughout this course. So who's this certification for? So CompTIA Linux Plus validates the skills administrators need to secure the enterprise, power the cloud, and keep systems running. New certification ensures that IT professionals, software developers, cybersecurity engineers, pen testers, I said that right, pen testers, and even software developers. You may not develop software, but if you work with software developers, Linux is in high demand for developing software. Linux Plus is the only job-focused Linux certification covering the latest foundational skills that are in high demand by hiring managers. Unlike other certifications, new exam includes performance-based questions and multiple choice questions to identify that you can actually do the job of the skills that you're claiming to be able to do on the exam. The exam covers tasks associated with major distributions of Linux like Ubuntu, CentOS, Rocky Linux, Red Hat, and many others. So Linux Plus validates the skills of IT professionals with hands-on experience configuring, monitoring, supporting servers, running a Linux operating system. The new exam has an increased focus on topics like security, kernel modules, storage, visualization, device management, enterprise level, Git, automation, networking, firewalls, server-side and command line, and even SE Linux, Security Enhanced Linux. What kind of jobs can you go for with a Linux Plus certification? Well, there are tons of them. Jobs that use CompTIA Linux Plus. You've got Linux administrators. So you could be a Linux administrator. You could be a cloud engineer. You could be a DevOps engineer. You could be a technical support specialist, a system administrator, network administrator, web administrator, or developer. So if you're a web developer, you're definitely going to be working with some Linux servers, some Apache probably, some Nginx. And then you've got, of course, cybersecurity engineer, which is kind of the new catch-all term for many different jobs in cybersecurity. And then finally, it'd be a Linux engineer. So lots of different options, tons and tons of jobs out there, more being created all the time. So let's talk about what kind of skills you're going to learn. So system management. This is the first domain. This will ensure you understand how to configure, manage software, storage, processes, and services. Security. This will help ensure that you understand best practices, permissions for authentication, firewalls, file management. Domain 3, scripting, containers, and automation. This will help you create simple shell scripts and execute basic bash scripts. Conduct version control using Git and orchestration processes. And then finally, domain 4, being able to troubleshoot when things go wrong. So what do you need for the course? Well, simply, you need a laptop running Linux, or at least being able to virtualize Linux. If you're going to run Linux on VirtualBox, Microsoft Hyper-V, or VMware, you need at least 20 gigabytes of space for the Linux install. Recommended 2 gigs of RAM or more. The more RAM you have, the better, especially if you're going to virtualize. So you might need a thumb drive to download the operating system if you want to install it on the system for you directly, rather than running it in a virtual machine. So many different ways you can run Linux, and we'll talk about that in the course. That's our bonus gift to you, is to show you how to properly run a Linux operating system in their modern era. So let's talk about how's the exam changed since 004. Well, new version covers an evolving job role that focuses more on how Linux powers the cloud. Exam will include cutting-edge technologies that help automate, orchestrate business processes, including infrastructure as code, as well as containers. We'll talk about Docker containers. We'll talk about infrastructure as code as part of the course. So some questions, some think about. Now, you don't have to answer these now, but I want you to think about these questions. Have you worked with Linux before? And if so, what distributions? Write them down. Write this down and think about what distributions that you've worked with. Number 2, think about how much command line experience do you have? Do you have command line experience with other operating systems like Mac OS, Linux, Windows, PowerShell, terminal experience, any kind of command line experience? Even Cisco would be helpful in Linux. How much experience do you have with networking, firewalls, IP addressing, subnetting? These are all topics that are going to be brought up on the Linux Plus exam, and they're going to help you. Think about what you want to get out of this course. We're always trying to better the course. And again, feel free to ask questions. There is a place to, if you're watching this on demand, you can post questions into the chat. What are your expectations? Do you want to become a Linux engineer, a Linux guru, a cloud guru? What's your goal? Do you have a favorite distribution of Linux? And if so, why? Think about what might be your favorite distribution of Linux, and maybe what are some of the things that made it easier. In my experience in the past, Linux used to be very bad with wireless adapters. So there was any distribution that recognized my wireless out of the box was a good one. Do you have any experience with virtualization, DevOps, orchestration? So if you have VMware VirtualBox experience, that will be a tremendous help to you. If you have DevOps, like cloud DevOps or infrastructure as code, or any orchestration technologies like Puppet, Chef, these will all be things that will help you. So bottom line, we have, this is the exam domains. You've got 32% on system management, 21% on security, 19% on scripting, containers, and automation, and 28% on troubleshooting. So think about those domains. You can't really skip any of them because they're all roughly equally weighted, except for the system management portion. System management is going to be a little bit more emphasized than some of the other domains. But doesn't mean you can ignore any one particular domain and still expect to pass the exam. So why Linux Plus? Well, again, there are salary estimates all over the place. You can look at modern salaries have increased due to various reasons, but one thing that has steadily kept pace is Linux systems administrator. So if you're a Linux administrator, you're probably going to make, so regular systems administrator without Linux experience makes roughly $85,000 per year. If you're a Linux engineer, notice that's almost a $40,000 difference. So a huge reason why you want to learn Linux and why it's important. Companies are starting to realize that they need to pay to get good qualified individuals, personnel to handle their Linux workloads. Skills are in high demand. Linux is still scary to a lot of people. Many hiring managers are looking for Linux skills. And so, of course, this is some of the new features that are being added to the exam to make it even more challenging. The Linux install base. This is Ubuntu is used by approximately 37% of the websites that use Linux, Debian 20.9%, CentOS 17%, Red Hat 2%. So you can see the majority of websites are using Ubuntu, which is why we'll focus on Ubuntu, but we will definitely touch on CentOS, the free version of Red Hat. We'll talk about even some of the other distributions of Linux that are maybe lesser known. So you can find that sweet spot Linux distribution that you want to use for your particular journey. So these are some of the different useful links out there for Linux Plus. We've got the CertFirst website, CertCop website. We've got lots of different guides. Again, we've used many different resources to build this course for you. I hope you're excited. So we talked about the course. We talked about skill set. Again, this is your course. This is Linux Plus. This is not any regular course. This is unlike most any other course you'll take, whether it's CompTIA, whether it's IC2, ISACA, it doesn't matter. Linux Plus is the real deal. Linux Plus is not an easy certification. It's not. Many people that have done Linux have said that they thought they knew a lot about Linux, and that was until they went into the Linux Plus exam. So important. So I appreciate your attention. I'm excited to have you in the course, and we'll see you in the next module. Thank you.